Hello and welcome, everybody who just made it through Cut Day. This is All Steelers Talk. We're your hosts, Noah Strackbine and Donnie Droon. It's Pittsburgh Steelers Cut Day. It's a sad day in the NFL, but an exciting day for plenty of guys that just made an NFL roster for the first time. And this could be your first time subscribing to All Steelers Talk on YouTube. Make sure to also check us out on Twitter and Facebook at AllSteelers and subscribe and check us out on Twitter at Nostrack, at Donnie Droon. Donnie, the 53-man roster for the Pittsburgh Steelers has been decided. It is official. There are some surprising cuts. There's some non-surprising cuts. What stood out to you overall on this last day of roster trimming?
Yeah, down to the very wire. I think the Steelers kept a lot of us waiting there for a little bit past that 4 p.m. Deadline that they had to submit to the NFL.
4:05. For
4:05.
Keeping track.
A couple names definitely surprising for me, at least in my eyes. This is going to sound really weird. BJ Finney was a bit of a surprise to me, and I don't think he's a great player at all. Don't get me wrong. But given the team's familiarity with him, given his veteran experience over the years, I thought they maybe would have at least kind of just like kept him around, but whatever, not a big deal. Cameron Canaday, longtime Steelers long snapper, BT Dubs, gone and out of here. Shout out to Kristen. If Donnie says it is considered a fact. I'm gonna get my fiance over here real quick. The biggest surprise for me, Quincy Roche, and I am the conductor of the Quincy Roche hype train. So very disappointed that he did not end up making the roster. A lot of people thought Cassius Marsh also would have made it. And then Donovan Steiner was actually a guy that you've been telling all of us about here the last couple episodes of All Steelers Talk. But nonetheless, cuts were made, and I feel like we already knew a good portion of the roster going into it. I was kind of happy to see a guy like Jalen Samuels off of the roster. A little bit surprised that Benny Snell still hung on to the roster, but you know what? That just means a roster spot was saved for Kalen Ballage, so you're not going to hear a whole lot of complaining from me over here.
No, I feel the same way. Jalen Samuels was a guy that you just kind of felt was on his way out for a little while now. He probably had the worst camp of most of the fourth-year guys or at least the younger veterans out there. And Kalen Ballage, he's a good guy. I mean, is he an every down back? Is he a guy that maybe even contributes on this roster this season? Probably not, but he's somebody that could add valuable practice reps. He's a guy that you're going to trust on the field probably more than Jalen Samuels, so you feel good about that. And then when it comes to guys like BJ Finney, I was shocked, and I was only shocked because they also cut Rashad Coward, and Kevin Dotson is hurt. So I don't really have any idea what their thought process is at left guard right now. Maybe it's J.C. Hassenauer, but that means that you don't have a backup heading into week one. Exactly. I just don't know what the Steelers' plan is right now because they have no interior depth, and their starter is missing practice now for the second day this week, or the first day this week, but he ended practice early on Monday. I don't know. Besides that, I mean, I don't really think there was a lot of surprise cuts. I will put a name out there that I was a little stunned about, and that's Arthur Millette, because I thought the Steelers were going to keep 5 cornerbacks. They did not, and that means that Cam Sutton is the only slot cornerback on this current roster. Does that mean they go out and get a defensive back?
Well, I think that's the thing we all need to remember. You hear a lot of final 53-man rosters. There's nothing final about these rosters. And in fact, I think the roster turnover is only starting because tomorrow, I mean, by the time a lot of people will be listening to this, the Steelers are already going to have the 16 maximum players allotted to a practice squad already filled up. You know, the waivers are going to come and go very, very quickly. And then there's almost going to be, 10 days until the Steelers kick off their 2021 season. So those rosters are definitely not set. And obviously they have the cap space and, all of the other positions of need that they could possibly go. I mean, you just pointed out to the inside interior of the offensive line being one of those positions they need to upgrade. The cornerback room, obviously, another position that you pointed out, both the slot and the outside as well, is something they can go and look at. So the Steelers' construction of the roster, I don't think is anywhere near close to being done. But, I mean, with the cuts that they made and the players that they did let go, yeah, you have to wonder if, they're at least keeping their eyes out for somebody, whether it be on the waiver wire or the trade block, right?
Exactly. But here's the thing. It's the offensive line. So far, we've already noticed that the offensive line does not mesh well. It is a group that's inexperienced outside of Trey Turner, who now needs to step in and be the starting five. And it might even include Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle if Zach Banner is unable to go week one, which right now seems to be the assumption. It's the offensive line. You need to mesh. You need to have that chemistry, and there is no chemistry. So if they go out and get an offensive lineman at this point and they go, okay, you're going to be our depth piece, or you're going to be the guy that replaces Kevin Dotson for the time being, is that even reliable? Can the Steelers really go out and do that and make an actual impact?
Well, I'll tell you this, man. Okorafor switching to the right side of the field is probably for the best, even though he probably shouldn't be starting anyway. I think Dan Moore Jr. is a very, very good football player, and I think at this point he deserves to at least have a chance to start. We already know what we're getting out of Okorafor, which isn't a very lot. So why not throw Dan Moore in the mix? Where in the bits and pieces we have seen from Dan Moore in the preseason, I think he's looked fine. But then again, they haven't played against a very, very good Buffalo Bills front seven on the road to open up the season. It's a completely different game whenever you get into the regular season. You start playing the top elite level guys play out. Whenever it comes to the chemistry of the offensive line, we already knew it was going to take a lot of work before the NFL draft, before training camp rolled around, before the first preseason game. And we sit here talking after the Steelers preseason is over, and I feel like we haven't made a lot of progress with the offensive line. I cannot say I feel more confident in the offensive line right now as opposed to whenever I did after the NFL draft and before training camp even started.
Exactly. And that's even more concerning, I think, at this point, because you kind of looked at it and went, okay, well, they have BJ Finney. He's a true swing guard. He's been here before. He's been that backup piece. Worst case scenario, he's their guy that's going to be here behind Dotson, behind Trey Turner. It's not great, but it's okay. You looked at it and went, okay, if this is the switch and Dan Moore Jr. will be at the left tackle and Zach Banner will eventually be at the right tackle, Chooks is a great jumbo guard or jumbo tackle and somebody that could come off the bench and contribute. And I feel pretty good about, and I think the Steelers feel pretty good about. Now you're looking at it and go, J.C. Hassenauer is your only option. What is the plan? Because Zach Banner has not practiced all week. Kevin Dotson missed the day on Tuesday. What is going to go on? Because in a week and a half, you have to start an NFL football game on the road in Buffalo, like you just said, with a group of guys that now have no idea who will be next to them for the first game of the regular season. That's a risk for Ben Roethlisberger. It's a risk for Najee Harris. And anybody who's out here thinking the Pittsburgh Steelers can walk into Buffalo and win without a solidified offensive line is kidding everybody around them and themselves, because it's not going to happen. Buffalo's defense is fantastic. Their front seven is fantastic. And the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have an offensive line. It's very, very, very concerning. Let me ask, is there a real possibility that have you even seen a name on the waiver wire that you could say, okay, this is a guy that maybe the Steelers go out and grab, or at this point, we're just waiting for some miracle to happen with Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin?
Probably the latter. I haven't seen any significant offensive linemen at least hit the waiver wire. I mean, obviously they'd have to go back and look at all of the teams and who they cut and whatnot. But no really like, hey, got to go out and get this guy names. The days of the Steelers finding a Joe Hayden that just falls into the lap, they are far gone, especially with the new COVID rules and the extended rosters and all that good stuff. Like it's gonna not be phenomenal. Actually, Matt Skura, that's a very good point by Nick in the chat right there.
It is Skura, a good point, but it's a center. He's a true center.
Listen, man, if you got to pick up Skura and play him at guard, you got to do what you got to do, man. Like,
yeah, but okay, but let me ask this question, because that's a good name and it's a good point by Nick here. But is Skura an upgrade from BJ Finney? Like, I get that maybe Skura at center is an upgrade from BJ Finney, but to play the same role, why wouldn't you just keep BJ Finney? How much do you distrust the guys on your team already? And you're gonna bring Skura in here on probably a bigger deal than Finney was on, obviously, and you're gonna expect him to play a backup role behind Kevin Dotson, or you're gonna throw him into a starting lineup in a week? BJ Finney, at bare minimum, had enough experience throughout the summer to say, okay, if you need to start at left guard for Kevin Dotson, it's an option. You understand the offense. Matt Skura is going to come in here in 8 days and 5 practice days. He's going to start at left guard.
Look, man, I think at this point you are clearly relying on talent to kind of persevere for the Steelers offensive line. And I think Skura, if and when the Steelers, do reach out, I mean, Kendrick Green knows how to play all of the interior spots. He played all of the interior spots in college. Why not slide Kendrick Green to guard and have Skura play center? We don't know what Skura looks like playing guard. At least I don't. I know how good he looks playing center. We've seen how good Kendrick Green can play at the guard level, at least up to the college position. So why not try something like that? Even back to Zach Banner, assuming Zach Banner does start week 1, and like you said, that's a lofty assumption right now. He's coming off a torn ACL. We have no clue what he's going to look like in like a solidified live action game.
Exactly. And that's kind of my point, is there are already so many question marks on the offensive line. Why go and add another one? I just think that the Steelers, it just didn't make sense to me to go out there and just get rid of all your depth and say, Joe Haig, man, that's the guy. J.C. Hassenauer, man, that's the guy. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, and maybe it will over time. But right now, I think the Steelers' offensive line is worse than they were at the beginning of the summer, and it's very concerning heading into Buffalo.
Dude, big question. Sorry, really quick. Like even the signing of Trey Turner is a very big question mark. I mean, I know he had those stints of Pro Bowls, recently in his career, but I mean, just like the injury history that he's had last year and the poor play that he demonstrated last year, even that was roll of the dice too, man. So like, when majority of your offensive line spots, 1, aren't even totally solidified, and 2, there's question marks at almost every position at the offensive line. That's not good. That is not good at all. And you know what? The people, and I'm bringing this up, a lot of people are going to be pissed. The people who really called for Najee to be the pick at number 24 and magically thought the offensive line was going to solve itself out. The people who threw confetti up in the air whenever Freiermuth was picked in the second round magically thought the offensive line was going to be fixed. No, it's not. And I think people are just now finding out how real of a problem this is going to be. And you know what? If they don't believe it now, they're going to find out in about 10 days.
In 10 days. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers put together a Super Bowl team and continued to do everything they can to put this team together for Ben Roethlisberger for one last ride. And somehow, some way, they just totally ignored the offensive line. And it is crazy. Let me jump to this question before we go over to defense. Nick's got another good one here. What's going to happen with the QB after Dobbs comes off IR? Truthfully, I don't believe that Dobbs will come off IR this season. I think he'll stay on IR, and I think why he'll stay on IR is because the Pittsburgh Steelers have a real possibility to keep him on the sideline, and that makes total sense. You don't want him on the practice squad. Who cares? That's Dwayne Haskins. That's Mason Rudolph. Let them run the show during practice. Josh Dobbs has the option to hold a clipboard and wear a hat on the sidelines in some street clothes all year long and work with Ben Roethlisberger standing right next to Matt Canada and Coach Sully. So I think that's their best option, and I think that's somewhat – look, the Pittsburgh Steelers are pretty smart people, and they know how to work the system. If Josh Dobbs is cool with it, I could see that. He's getting paid. He's able to rehab. He's not going to go find a job this summer or this season, not at least a good one. Stick it out in Pittsburgh. See what happens next year.
So before I answer this, first of all, phenomenal question, because whenever I saw Dobbs was placed on that IR list, that's exactly the thought I had. 2, do we know the extent of Josh Dobbs' injury?
No. I mean, we haven't heard anything. Tomlin, Mike Tomlin's been Mike Tomlin. He doesn't really want to talk much. I just know that he's on IR. I know that it's turf toe. Turf toe is not really a season-ending injury, but maybe for Josh Dobbs it could be. I mean, bare minimum, he's going to start the season where he can't come back for the first 6 weeks. At 6 weeks into the season, you're going to tell me that a guy like Josh Dobbs is going to go hit the free agent market and go get a job somewhere? I think the Pittsburgh Steelers would love to keep him around, and I think he would want to.
Well, I think with the COVID rules, it's actually 3 weeks.
No, to start the season, it's 6. There is the veteran.
That's the PUP list.
That's the physical. No, he went on the IR. He didn't go on. PUP. So I guess it is 3 weeks minimum. I still don't. It doesn't change my thought at all. I still believe that their best option is to keep Josh Dobbs off of the field and on the sideline. And I think everybody except for Josh Dobbs, who wants to play some football, it works out best for them.
Because here's the thing, like the Steelers have 4 quarterbacks that they want to hold on to. I don't think the Steelers were really antsy or eager to get rid of any of the quarterbacks they have in their room, right? So a lot of people were looking at a day like today for the 4 p.m. Eastern deadline, and you're like, man, like I don't know if they're going to keep all 4 quarterbacks. Who's it going to be? And that's something we talked about on the show last week, actually. So if you're able to keep Josh Dobbs on the sideline, like you alluded to, that's a win-win. 1, because he's not on another roster, and 2, you still have his rights if and when he does come back. But the problem is that, at least my personal opinion, no, you've been in training camp every day, and I haven't. You know a little bit more about the situation than I do. I don't know if he's going to want to just kind of chill on the sidelines for the entire year. And that begs the question: if the Steelers really do want to keep Josh Dobbs, and it kind of seems like they do, at least in the short term. Like, who's going to go, Rudolph or Haskins? Because an interesting point about Haskins is that since the Steelers re-signed him, next year in free agency, they can put a first-round tender on him since he was drafted in the first round. And
That's what I'm saying.
If a team really loves Dwayne Haskins, it won't happen, and they sign him, the Steelers will get a first-round pick. And that is almost essentially guaranteeing you have Dwayne Haskins for another year.
Exactly. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to get rid of anybody. And, while you could say that Josh Dobbs has a great training camp or had a great preseason, which I think he did, and I truly believe that he would have outperformed Dwayne Haskins in that last game, he still isn't making this team, and the Steelers know that. Mason Rudolph is their backup. We have said this time and time again. Mason Rudolph is the next man up. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. At least 1 year. Dwayne Haskins is a guy that's here. He's got way more potential than Josh Dobbs. He's younger than Josh Dobbs. And, at some point, he probably carries more trade value or, like you just explained, some free agency value for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward. Josh Dobbs doesn't carry any of that. So, unfortunately, if he does come off IR, the Pittsburgh Steelers are either going to put him on their practice squad, which is definitely a possibility, or they're just going to ditch him. And, it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate for Josh Dobbs, but he does have an opportunity to be Ben Roethlisberger's best friend this season. And I think for a guy who's going to be practice squad guy, that's not a bad deal.
No, not at all. But let's say the Steelers do cut Josh Dobbs. Like, are you losing sleep? I'm not.
No, nobody is. But I think that for Josh Dobbs, and when it comes to the question of, what would happen to Josh Dobbs, I don't think Josh Dobbs goes anywhere. But I do think that if he does come off IR, Josh Dobbs is unfortunately out of here. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. The Pittsburgh Steelers made some surprising moves, like you alluded to. Quincy Roche and Cassius Marsh are gone on the end, but our boy Jameer Jones is sticking around. I love that decision. I was a little surprised to see them only keep 4. I thought Cassius Marsh would have made his way back onto the team, but I think that he has an opportunity to be on the practice squad. Quincy Roche is definitely going to be on the practice squad from what I'm hearing. And at cornerback, they only kept 4. Justin Lane, Cam Sutton, James Pierre, and Joe Hayden. No Arthur Millette. There's one slot guy. What's going on here?
I don't want to stir the rumor mill, but, you have to figure with only 4 cornerbacks on the depth chart, somebody's got to be added. I don't know if that's going to come through trade or free agency or waivers or whatever, but I don't think the Steelers are really content on rolling with only 4 cornerbacks on their roster. Now, granted, like we said a little bit earlier, the practice squad size is 16. They can call those guys up pretty much anytime they want. And you would have to assume that at least a couple cornerbacks are going to land on the practice squad. And you have to assume that a lot of the guys that the Steelers released today are going to just come right back to Pittsburgh and end up on the practice squad anyway. The Arthur Millette, he was banged up, so not a big surprise. And Mark Gilbert, which is somebody you've talked about, maybe not. But I'm going to go defer to the pass rushers because you can never have too many pass rushers. And at least in the preseason, guys like Roche and Marsh didn't play terrible at all. So it was a little bit surprising for me to see those guys move. But you know what? I'm not calling the shots. I don't have consequences to anything I say or do. So.
No, I agree. And I think that the Steelers have to add a cornerback. The problem is that everybody keeps talking about outside guys. They're like, go get CJ Henderson, go get all these free agents. The Steelers need a slot cornerback. They don't need an outside guy. As much as everybody dislikes Justin Lane and has no faith in Justin Lane, it's just like Mason Rudolph. The Steelers have this vast, disunderstanding, if that's even a word, that Justin Lane can play football behind James Pierre and Joe Hayden. I don't see it. Nobody else sees it, but that's what they believe, and they're going to stick that one out. Mark Gilbert will probably end up on the practice squad, and so will Arthur Millette, but they need another slot guy. The problem is that there's none there. At the same point, maybe they don't have that much faith in James Pierre. I think that they do have that much faith in James Pierre, and they'll go out and trade for somebody for the outside. I still don't think it solves anything. It's a tough call. It really, like I've said before, it all kind of comes down to guys like Trey Norwood. Can Trey Norwood, by the end of the season, play all over the field? Because right now, he's just a guy that could play safety, and he didn't play well at nickelback in the preseason game. That could change over time. He's worked at safety all summer, not at nickelback. But it's a big question. I think it's the biggest question. In the comments, a lot of people are trashing on UG3 right now. I 100% agree. I do not believe that UG3 should have made this team. I don't understand how you keep five inside linebackers, 5 of them, and somehow UG3 is one of them. Doesn't make any sense to me. But besides that, I think that the Steelers did enough. At the same time, on the defensive line, loved everybody that they kept. I love Isaiah Loudermilk sticking on the team. I love that they kept all their rookies outside of Quincy Roche. You want to know what I did not love? I did not love JuJu Smith-Schuster doing this.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He makes it. Here's the thing. JuJu makes it. And from what I'm hearing from everybody out there, this crate challenge, this crazy crate challenge, there's a little thing in the comments here that UG3 looked better than Robert Spillane. Delonte, he did not. Robert Spillane looked really bad. Trust me. UG3 looked really, really bad. Neither of them are going to make a solid contribution to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2021. Maybe Robert Spillane does on like goal line stands, like we've talked about before. But UG3, man, no, doesn't have it. Doesn't have it. He's too slow in coverage, and he's too small to be a run stuffer. That's UG3's problem. It's always been UG3's problem. He's a good special teams guy, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are full of special teams guys. Half their team is a good special teams guy. It just doesn't fit the mold. It's time for a guy like him to go. I also just found out today that he's from Akron. I did not know that, but I don't understand how a kid from Akron who has very small college experience, big league college experience, is still sticking around on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster at inside linebacker. But outside the point, back to JuJu Smith-Schuster. The crate challenge 2021, from what everybody keeps telling me, it's not that big of a deal. It's just whatever. Any athletic guy could go do the crate challenge. I'll tell you right now, I'm not stacking crates in front of me, and I'm not walking up and then walking down them because I'm going to break my back. And I am not unathletic. I'm a pretty normal-looking dude.
Can you pull up the video?
Oh, yes, I can. I think
I'd like to point something out real quick. Pause it.
Pause the video here.
Please. A lot of people have pointed out that there are 2 grown men on the side of JuJu waiting to catch him if he falls. I don't know if people have seen the crate challenge or not, but those people typically do not flail to either side of said crates and land safely on the grass. They usually drop down like the Titanic and end up in the hospital because their backs are so messed up. Now I'll concede that. Is JuJu a grown man who can do what he wants? Absolutely. I don't think there's any stopping JuJu at this point for anything that JuJu wants to do. He clearly doesn't care what any of the big talking media heads in Pittsburgh have to say about him on or off the field. Whatever, he's been called TikTok boy, doesn't really faze him. Mm-hmm. Should JuJu be doing this? Granted, the season is about to start, and granted, there's a bunch of people there, which means people are probably filming him in some capacity. He needs to be a little smarter.
Okay. I don't even know if it has to.
No,
Yeah, I agree. But
it does.
I feel like you could categorize that in a couple of different things. And I think the biggest one that stands out is you have to be unselfish at this point in the season. And at this point in your career, you came back to the Pittsburgh Steelers on a 1-year deal to say, this is my team and this is where I want to go earn my mega contract. I don't think JuJu came here to win a Super Bowl. I think he came here to earn big bucks. And that's fine. Go do that. This is a business. You have to make business decisions. You are an adult. You have to make business decisions that also orient around your team. JuJu Smith-Schuster climbing up crates and climbing down crates, whether chances are he makes it or not, just says, I'm putting myself and my clout and my social media status way above the Pittsburgh Steelers and my football career. That does not sound like a guy who I want as a number one receiver, first off, and it does not sound like a guy who's supposed to be here to lead the team.
So I don't even think the milk challenge thing, at least in JuJu's eyes, was about social media, because he wasn't posting himself doing anything. He was literally just doing it. I do think it comes back to just seeing a thing of milk crates stacked up in front of you and bro, I can do that. Bro, I can do that.
Either way, that's some type of clout, though. Even if it's in person in clout. And I could agree with the social media thing, because on his Instagram, he put a bunch of videos of people climbing up and down these milk crates. He did not post his video climbing up and down the milk crates. And it's just like the fight that happened at Heinz Field, where he tweeted out that he would punch the girl too, and then he took it down. JuJu Smith-Schuster is starting to realize that he's not he could definitely still receive criticism from people. And maybe he's taken that a little more lightly. Unfortunately, that doesn't stop his immaturity.
Yeah, and I don't know. When you have certain media members in this town that watch everything that you do, that constantly talk about you in a negative light, and a lot of the stuff that you've done throughout the last couple of years has brought negative attention to your football team. I like JuJu a lot. I think JuJu is a fun, energetic guy. I think he's living his life the way he wants to. I have no problems with that as a person. But as a football player, and this kind of goes back to Chase Claypool too, you have to stop yourself for a minute and realize, hey man, is what I'm doing right now affecting my football team in a negative way? Because the very most thing that Mike Tomlin hates is having to answer BS questions about BS things he has nothing to do about.
He said straight up, he's like, if we're talking about this, we're not focused on football and we're already losing. Yeah, that stinks, but isn't it kind of your player's fault that you have to be talking about this? It's my job to ask your opinion on your player climbing milk crates and then climbing down them. It's your job to ignore that. It's your player's job for me not to ask those questions by not doing dumb things. I don't know. JuJu's just a guy that over and over again, and I totally agree. I mean, you got guys like Madden and all these guys out here that just constantly nag on this guy and never leave him alone. And I understand that he's still a kid, and if I am his age, and I want to go do dumb stuff all the time. The difference is that I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to go play for the Pittsburgh Steelers and be a mentor to all these younger wide receivers. He is. And that's where the difference is. And unfortunately, he just continues to show that maybe that's not his role, or maybe that can't be his role, because he doesn't seem to handle it well. He doesn't seem to make those right decisions. Either way, people love it. People defended JuJu like there was no tomorrow yesterday. And I don't understand why.
Yeah, and look, I get it. After a certain point, I mean, you obviously develop favorites as a fan watching the football team, and you never want to see your favorites talked down in a bad light. And I mean, is what JuJu did the worst thing that's happened in the NFL? No, not even close. And it's not even the worst thing that JuJu's done personally. It's just the principle of it, bro, what are you doing? You're playing a football game in 10 days. Get off the milk crates, laugh at other people doing it. Just come on, man.
Exactly. It's a bad culture for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are trying desperately to get rid of that bad culture. And, we'll see where it goes from here. But right now, I doubt anything becomes of it. Thank you, everybody, for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at All Steelers Talk, and check us out on Twitter and Facebook at All Steelers. Make sure to follow us at Noah Strack, at Donnie Droon, and we will see you next time.